The day the Andromedians came. It started like any ordinary day. The sun rose over the horizon, casting its familiar golden light across cities, towns, and fields. People went about their lives, working, driving, eating, laughing, completely unaware that this was the last sunrise they'd ever see. By noon, the sky began to change. It was subtle at first, a faint distortion, like ripples on the surface of water, bending the light in ways that made the eye twitch. Then, without warning, the distortion grew, spreading across the sky like a tear in reality. The air itself seemed to vibrate with an unnatural hum, a low-frequency sound that made animals flee in terror and set every nerve in the human body on edge. In the middle of the sky, an enormous rift appeared. It was like a wound in the atmosphere, a jagged black hole that pulsed with a strange, sickening glow. From the rift emerged the first of them, the Andromedians. They didn't look like anything people had ever imagined. They weren't little green men or bug-eyed monsters. No, the Andromedians were something far more alien, far more terrifying. They were towering, shimmering figures, taller than buildings, their forms constantly shifting between solid and liquid, light and shadow. Their faces, if they could be called faces, were featureless voids, holes where eyes, mouths, and noses should have been. And yet, every human who looked at them could feel their gaze, a cold, empty stare that pierced straight into the soul. The invasion began without a single word or declaration. The Andromedians did not communicate. They did not explain their purpose. They simply acted. In seconds, entire cities were engulfed in chaos. The Andromedians moved with impossible, their bodies phasing through solid structures, melting skyscrapers and bridges into molten slag as they passed. Everywhere they went, death followed. People screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to hide. The Andromedians could be everywhere at once, phasing through walls, appearing in the sky, on the ground, in the oceans. They were omnipresent, unstoppable. As they moved, the air itself seemed to die. Plants withered and crumbled to dust. Animals collapsed where they stood, their bodies shriveled and empty. The Andromedians didn't just kill, they erased. People caught in their wake didn't merely die, they disintegrated, their bodies breaking down into nothing, as though they had never existed at all. The ground beneath their feet turned to ash, buildings crumbled into powder, and the sky grew darker and darker, as if the sun was being swallowed by their presence. The world's governments tried to respond. Every military force on Earth united in a desperate attempt to fight back. Missiles were launched, fighter jets filled the sky, and tanks rolled through the streets, but it was all useless. The Andromedians were untouchable. Bullets passed through them like air, explosions were absorbed into their shifting forms, and every weapon used against them was met with silent, immediate obliteration. Entire battalions vanished in the blink of an eye, their soldiers erased from existence without even a sound. And then the real horror began. The Andromedians had come for more than just death. They had come to consume. They opened the rift wider, and from it came a new kind of terror. Vast, serpentine tendrils, miles long, slithering across the sky and down to the earth. These tendrils weren't physical things. They were made of pure energy, writhing and pulsing with a sickly light. Wherever they touched, the world began to unravel. Mountains crumbled into dust, rivers evaporated into thin air, and cities were swallowed whole. But the worst part was the silence. There were no screams, no explosions, no sounds of destruction. Just the endless, eerie hum that grew louder as the world fell apart. People could see everything collapsing around them, their loved ones vanishing into nothingness. But there was no time to react, no time to even comprehend what was happening. The Andromedians were wiping out all of creation, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. As the Earth itself began to die, the Andromedians finally revealed their true form. In the center of the rift, a colossal figure appeared, a being so massive that it blotted out the sky. Its body was a swirling mass of galaxies, stars, and black holes, and its gaze was the end of all things. This was no mere invader. This was something far beyond human understanding, a cosmic force, a god of destruction. It spoke without words. Its message burned into the minds of every living creature. Your time is over. We are the Andromedians. We are the death of worlds. We are the extinction of life. And now you are nothing. The last remaining survivors, those who had somehow evaded the Andromedians' touch, fell to their knees, clutching their heads as the voice filled their minds, louder and louder, until it was all they could hear. And then, as the final tendrils reached down from the rift, the Earth itself began to disintegrate. The oceans boiled away, the continents crumbled, and the very core of the planet was consumed by the Andromedians' hunger. In mere minutes, the Earth was gone. Not destroyed, not left as a barren wasteland, but completely erased from existence. There was no debris, no trace of its billions of years of history. It was as though the planet had never been. And in the void where Earth once was, the Andromedians turned their gaze toward the stars. Their hunger was far from sated. They would move on to the next world and the next, until all life in the universe was extinguished. For they were the Andromedians, and they were the end of everything. The universe would never be the same, for the Andromedians were coming for all.